A commenter once asked me, did I start this channel just to grind my axe against Christian fundamentalists? Well, actually the answer is yes. And stay tuned and I'll tell you why I sharpen that axe's edge every week. Now, if you look at the comments, which I have quite a few of by now, you'll see that there's some evangelical fundamentalist types adding their opinion to my videos, and their opinion is usually in high disagreement, and that's perfectly fine. If you're going to put something out there on the public platform, people are going to comment and disagree with you. I'm certainly not going to take these comments down for expressing these opinions. The only time a comment gets banned is if somebody drops the F-bomb or something of the like, and that's not me banning it, I'm not offended, but the YouTube machine is. But outside of that, generally your comments will stay. I have one guy who comments all the time, who sounds like a fundamentalist, who has stated that he's a Vietnam vet, and I'm certainly not going to trample on that man's freedom of speech. Even if I think his reasoning is off, as a vet myself, me and this guy probably have more in common than we don't. And I do think the conclusions that the Christian fundamentalists make consist of nothing but anti-reason and irrationality. And we do have concrete facts to back that up that's believed by everyone except the fundamentalists. But I had one comment that asked me if my sole purpose of making this channel was just to keep grinding my axe against Christians. So I thought I'd take a break from the extensive research I usually have to do making these videos, and just give a background of why I started this channel to begin with. First of all, throughout my entire adult life, I have had Christian fundamentalists attempt to approach me, recruit me, chastise me, lecture me, and redirect me. Whether it was a social environment or even the work environment where you're supposed to keep your religion to yourself, they have been intrusive in every possible way that they could, all under the guise of, it's for my own good, and we are called to spread fellowship, whether that amplification of the calling is wanted by others or not. And for those of us who live in the rational world, it is much like being approached by the Flat Earth Society. No matter how much evidence is there, you will never accept it because you're brainwashed. And you find me a non-fundamentalist who would disagree. So I've spent a lot of time arguing with these people, debating with these people, trying to bring them to reason, since they did start it after all, and it got to be tiresome. I've done so much reading over the past few decades that it was hard to keep track of my sources, as I explained the scientific and historical reasons why the Great Flood could never have occurred. So I decided to create an archive of my research, section by section, topic by topic, claim by claim, from the fundamentalist apologists on every single belief that they have that they're trying to propagate on the rest of us. So that way, years later, I wouldn't have to keep arguing with them and keep re-looking up my sources and research. I could just send them a link to my video that did it for me in the past. Now, is that going to cause them to deconvert? Probably not, but it saves me a great deal of wasted time. But there's another reason that I started this channel. And understand, it doesn't really matter whether it makes it big or not. I'm already 75% retired and living in foreign countries most of the time. But I hope it does gain some acclaim, because my other mission with this channel is to hopefully reach a few people, probably in their late teen to early 20 years, and plant that seed in their head that what their pastor, family, friends, and evangelical social groups keep telling them may be incorrect. Because understand, most of these people have been brainwashed with this nonsense since they were old enough to lift the Bible off the shelf. I don't want them to leave their fundamentalist churches based on my accord. I want to plant a seed so they'll go out and start researching for themselves. Because if they do that objectively, they will not be a fundamentalist Christian for long. I want this ridiculous brainwashing religion to go extinct. All the genres of fundamentalism. Evangelicals, Jehovah's Witnesses, extreme Southern Baptists, Seventh-day Adventists, and the like all need to be a thing of the past. And why am I hoping to pull some young people out of your church to deconvert? Because you're hurting them. On one of my very rare contracts recently, I had a patient who was an escapee from the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. He told me it took him years of therapy to recover from this brainwashing that had been forced upon him in his youth. The absolute isolation that he felt upon leaving, having no ability to fit in with regular people. Does that sound like his former religion was a good thing? The simple fact is, you are hurting your children to be later dysfunctional adults by this very indoctrination. First of all, you're hurting your future youth socially. Now, I'm not saying you should have a free-for-all and not teach basic morality to children, but the stringent moral code, and we are talking about the natural inclination of sexual attraction to the opposite sex, will come home to roost in their later adult lives. You can always count on the fundamentalist to have an entire graveyard sitting in his closet. Want an example? In a previous video, I mentioned a girl I was dating whose church and friends in a group called Horizons made sure that I wasn't dating her for very long. And unfortunately, their sway overrode mine. Would you like to know what happened to her pastor? He hanged himself after being caught sleeping with a 15-year-old. And that's what happens when you sexually repress someone for their entire lives. And that example is not only not uncommon, it is rampant behind the closed doors of the fundamentalist communities. But there's other ways you're hurting your children socially. If you're going to teach them to walk around speaking in tongues as they raise their hands shivering, praising God for the gift, you're going to make them look like the complete cult member that they are to their peers. Because a normal person does not walk around carrying the Bible with them every day, chanting verses at anyone who may pass by. A cult member does. You place them in that environment their entire young lives, then who will they be able to fit in with besides other fundamentalists? It's funny how Catholics don't seem to have a problem hanging around Episcopalians. And the Episcopalian could walk down the street and hang out with the Jew. But who can the Christian fundamentalists get along with? That evangelical Jehovah's Witness or Seventh-day Adventist? The answer is no one. Because these institutions don't teach you to worship your God, they indoctrinate you to make a complete spectacle of yourself. And the other way you're hurting your youth is you are hurting their future chances of success. How do you say? You're brainwashing them to not only have a complete disdain for science, but to completely reject it altogether. And if you're teaching your kids to reject the sciences, then how are they going to pursue the high-paying scientific fields? They're not going to be inclined to take physics so one day they can be an engineer, or the many other trades that require science. You are limiting their opportunities. I can only hope that at least some of them go into the trades, where they can at minimum acquire a decent paycheck. But they're not going to grow up and be doctors with all the biological sciences that precede that profession. And of course, they're not going to be driven to success. They're going to be indoctrinated to stand idly by and let God take care of them. Oh, you think I'm kidding here? I knew an evangelical who acquired $250,000 with an insurance claim for his injured knee and invested it all in speculative stocks, thinking God would just take care of him. And as the adage goes, a fool is soon parted from his money because he lost every dime of it. And if he hadn't been brought up with evangelism since he was a child, maybe he wouldn't have. Now, a non-evangelical might lose their money making bad decisions as well, but at least they didn't make these decisions thinking God was just going to carry them through. So everything you're doing, Christian fundamentalist, in terms of how you're raising your children is harmful. It's going to be harmful to their future relationships, their dating life, their social life, their career life, and life decisions. So yes, to my commenter who asked me if I was just going to keep grinding my axe against Christian fundamentalism, yes I am. Because every young person who watches one of my videos, who has that creeping doubt in the back of his mind, and then goes off and begins to research for himself, causing him to become a deconvert, is a win. And if all of us out there who are doing this sort of thing get enough wins, one day Christian fundamentalism will be extinct as it should be. And if you'd like more videos debating Christian fundamentalists, just click on the end card at the end of the video for the playlist, and check out The Second Fall, an offbeat apocalypse sure to offend the fundamentalists. You know where the links are in the description and banner, and I will see you the next time as we once again take that sword of reason and reality and thrust it right through the heart of ignorance.